Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan. Today is Thursday, the 20th of March. If you're listening to this on the day that it is released, in which case it is Retail Raw. That is my free online summit for product business owners and independent retailers. You need to head over to Retail Raw. That's Retail ROAR, Raw like a tiger, at .co.uk and sign up for your free space. If you haven't done so already, you do not want to miss this. We have the best retail entrepreneurs and experts who are sharing their expertise, and it's all completely free. So if you haven't done so already, shoot over to retailraw.co.uk and get yourself signed up. If you can't watch live, don't worry, you'll be able to watch the replays over the weekend, but you need to be signed up. So today I am delighted to welcome to the podcast Hannah Spicer. Hannah Spicer is an email marketing strategist. I've known Hannah for many years and she's done some incredible work with really amazing luxury and premium brands. And she's also super passionate about the role of email marketing in retaining customers and building your customer lifetime value. So we're going to jump straight in with a discussion of how your email marketing can create not just customers, but customers for life. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing: breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch, and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Hannah, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you with us. Do you want to start us off by introducing yourself and your business?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I did corner you at an event and asked you to have me on, so thank you for saying yes. My name's Hannah Spicer. I've worked in digital marketing and e-commerce for over 20 years, and I now run my own consultancy called Hannah Spicer Consulting. And we are focused on helping premium and luxury brands get the most out of their email marketing as possible.
Amazing. And we actually met, I think, pre-pandemic. Is that
We
correct?
did. Yeah,
Yes.
long time ago.
Long time ago. Because I used to run evening panel talks back in the day. It seems like such a
Yeah.
long time ago now. And we met there. So it's wonderful to have you with us because I know you've worked there's quite an overlap with lots of my clients have worked with you and vice versa. So it's really great to have you. And I'm excited to delve into today's topic because obviously I know you're predominantly looking at luxury, but ultimately I think what you focus on is relevant to pretty much everybody who sells products, would you say?
It really is. Yeah, absolutely. So all of the kind of journeys and tactics are relevant for any business. It's
Mhm.
just done in a different way. But yes, absolutely. There'll be learnings for everybody, small and big and premium or not.
Amazing. So we're going to be talking about customer retention and loyalty. And I know that you're really passionate about email flows as a way of doing that. I know that, we hear a lot about automated email flows, but for someone who's not super familiar with them, can you explain what they are in a nutshell and why they're so powerful for e-commerce businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a few different kinds of emails that we send to customers. So let's just cover off the kind of least interesting one first, which was transactional emails. So that will be things like order confirmation, order dispatch, return confirmation. Those are emails that tend to go from your e-commerce platform like Shopify. They're not seen as marketing emails. They're treated a little bit differently. Then when we look at marketing emails, we have, if you're using Klaviyo, I'll use those names, they're called campaigns or there's
Mhm,
flows.
mhm,
So campaigns, which are also sometimes referred to as newsletters, are the one-off emails that somebody manually goes in and builds and writes and creates and sends. So
mhm,
things like new in,
mhm.
bestsellers, or a sale launch, anything like that. A flow, which is also sometimes called an automation or a triggered email, is created once and then
Hmm.
it continually triggers depending on what a user does. One example that probably most people will be familiar with is an abandoned checkout flow.
Hmm.
So we probably all receive those if we shop online, which is it's triggered by someone adding an item to their cart and then not completing the checkout.
Hmm.
So ideally, you have for your retail business, you have both of these kind of emails in place. You've got your campaigns on one hand, which are really good at kind of keeping you top of mind and responding to things that are going on at that time, like Valentine's Day or whatever.
Yeah.
And then your flows are triggering in the background and working hard for you and also driving a lot of revenue.
Hmm.
And the reason why flows are really important is because by their very nature, they're much more targeted and relevant. They tend
Hmm.
to get higher open click and conversion rates
Yeah.
because they are responding to something that the person has done. So if you think about if you've got both of those in place, your email marketing could be driving anywhere between 30 to 50% of your total e-commerce revenue.
Hmm.
And then if you drill down to those different types, you're probably looking for like a 50% split between flows and campaigns, just to give you an idea.
Okay, that's really interesting. And I think that's fascinating that it can be as high as 50%. I think I often say like around a third can, of kind of almost healthy. It's like around a third. If it's below that, there's definitely money you're leaving on the table for
Yeah.
e-commerce from email marketing. But interesting. So you would say you would expect to see a 50-50 split between flows and newsletters or
Yes,
flows and
absolutely.
campaigns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. And this is a bit of a side note, but I was just curious about your take on it because you mentioned transactional emails. And I know there's sort of like like a sort of poor relation, as it were, sometimes in email marketing, or, it's like we think about just transactional emails. But I'm just curious because obviously you're working in luxury where it's all about brand experience. It's all about that. Do you presumably would take a look at even those? Because sometimes I get, obviously, most of the time you just get like a really bog standard, like your order's on its way. But then sometimes I do get a transactional email that's actually quite sort of quirky or it's fun or it's, like in a very specific brand tone. So do
Yeah.
you think that they can be an opportunity to do a bit of brand building?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you want to kind of take a look at the design of them and as much as possible keep them consistent with your marketing emails.
Mm,
And yeah, absolutely. Bring in your tone of voice and make them feel a bit more fun or engaging or, whatever your brand values are,
mm,
because they are still really important and they will be very highly opened. So yes, if you
mm.
can bring in that nice copy and tone of voice and design and overall look feel, then definitely.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so thank you so much for that. It's a really clear distinction then. You've got your campaigns, you've got your flows, and they should be about 50-50, which is really fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people listening are probably going to go away and check and see where they're at. But I'd love to just touch on kind of the purpose of some of those automated flows, because a lot of brands are focusing on getting new customers, but keeping them coming back is the real challenge in a way, right? That's how you build profitably because you're not constantly trying to get newness in. But what are some of the best strategies that you would recommend for driving retention using those post purchase emails?
I totally agree. I think there is a big focus on, welcome flows,
Mm.
abandon checkout, abandon browse flows, and rightly so. Those are really important. And I typically do see those flows driving, they're normally the top three performers in terms of
Mhm.
revenue.
Yeah.
But obviously, abandon checkout and abandon browse will be going to your existing customers too. What I think is neglected a lot of the time is what happens after the purchase.
Mm.
So again, there's like a whole suite of flows that we can think about in this space as well.
Mhm.
If you think about how much money and time and effort it costs now to acquire a new customer, it's much more
Yeah.
challenging than it was during COVID. We really want to make sure that we're getting the most value out of those customers in terms of repeat purchase and building that lifetime value. I think, there's things like win back flows, there's anniversary flows, but I think the most important flow is a post purchase flow. And that's got quite a lot of different tactics and strategies built into it. And it can be as long as a month or even longer.
Wow.
It's really kind of taking your customers on quite a considered journey once they place an order with you.
Mhm.
So if we talk a bit through what that could look like.
Yeah.
So obviously the day that they place an order with you, they're going to get their order confirmation email. I would recommend a day after that starting to follow up and making them feel good about their purchase while they're sitting at home waiting for it.
Mhm.
So it's almost like creating the opposite of buyer's remorse. So how can I make them feel good that they've spent their money with me
Yeah.
in that moment where they might think, oh, I don't know if I should have spent that money. And this is really about a kind of brand building storytelling email. So it could be a note from the founder if you're a small business. It could be a reminder of how and why and where you make your products. You can even say, like, we are busy creating or wrapping your item while you're waiting. Here's a reminder of our values. And like, you can talk about your sustainability or, what your mission is, like how your products are different. It's all about kind of making them feel good about that order.
Mhm.
So not really a commercial one. It's really about kind of building that relationship. I'd also then recommend triggering an email about the time that you expect them to receive that item. And then it's about kind of making them feel inspired and educated and confident to start using it. But
Mhm.
also kind of touching in to see if there's any issues or questions. And also, I think social media can come in here as well. So, kind of trying to engage them to post, that wonderful unboxing moment and start to kind of engage with you on socials as well. But if you've got something like a beauty or a supplement brand, it's giving them the information they need to start using the product, like how to actually use it and get the most out of it. If it's something like clothing or homeware, it might be more, how to style it or how to clean it so they feel confident to start wearing it or putting it out in their house. If it's food and drink, recipe inspiration, right? How do you immediately get someone excited to start using your product?
Mhm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I just recently bought some very silly running socks, which I got loads of ads for on Instagram, and then eventually I bought them. They got unicorns on them, and they say "Stay Magic." Anyway, I was like, I'm doing a lot of
Amazing.
running. I can have some fun socks. And you're absolutely right. I did get an email from them saying how to wash them, which is actually, super useful, right? Because the last thing you want to do is get a new item, then accidentally shrink it in the washing machine.
Totally, totally. Yeah, I think it's really clever. And I think I'd got a new supplement that I'd started using, and there was all the different ways you kind of bring it into your daily routine. Like you can add it to your
Mm,
tea, you can add it to some porridge, you can add it to like it's just making it really easy and making people start using the product because if they don't start using it, they're not going to review it and they're definitely not going to come back and buy it again. So it's kind of making sure it doesn't get left on the shelf, that they're actually bringing it into their lifestyle.
yeah, yeah, I love that. Have you actually seen that in terms of when you work with clients that you've seen an uptake in return customers then when you implement something like this to get them actually using it and engaging? Do you see actual engagement and people interacting on social media? Like what kind of impact does it have?
Yeah, we definitely I'm kind of focusing on the metrics on the email side of things, and I
Mm,
see really high opens and clicks in
mhm.
this time of, like, nurturing a customer once they've bought with you to start getting used to the product, feeling confident, and kind of checking in with them, and I don't think it's one email, I think it's about continuing to do that, but,
Mm,
yes, and especially, again, if it's kind of a supplement or a beauty or a skincare piece, there's a lot of space to kind of continue to do that as they go on using
mm,
it.
mhm,
I worked with a supplement brand who is a collagen brand, so you wouldn't really see the results until you've been taking it for about a month, right? So you actually
mm.
want to nurture them for a month to keep taking it before you can even start to say, "Okay, now are you seeing any results? Like, can you give
Yeah.
feedback?" And that's another thing that we should be thinking about on this post-purchase journey is asking them for feedback and reviews.
Mm,
Obviously know the power of user-generated content, so making sure that that is somewhere in the journey as well.
yeah.
And then I think just to as we talked about, like, driving that repeat purchase, it's really important to come back and then cross-sell and upsell to them.
Mhm,
You can do that with, like, personalized product recommendations, which if you're using Klaviyo, you can build within the template really easily. You can do it with newness. If you have quite regular product drops, you can bring people back. That's a really popular kind of driver for people to come back to your site. And you can also do it with replenishment. If you've got a replenishable product, that's another way to do it. And then finally, one thing I think that people miss, because we're talking specifically around trying to get someone from a one time to a repeat customer,
mm,
what you can do is if they haven't bought with you again and you've tried a lot of this content and tactics of kind of cross selling, you can then target them with a unique limited time second purchase offer. And you can
mhm,
allude to that and say, hey, and look, we'd love for you to add to your collection as a valued customer. Here's 10% off if you use it within 5 days. Like, drive that sense of urgency, make them like understand why they're getting the offer and that it's limited time and it's really targeted to
Hmm.
try and get them to get that second purchase. Once they do, they're so much more likely for that third, fourth, fifth purchase to happen.
Mm,
And
yeah,
it's worth doing.
yeah. Well, actually, I wanted to ask you that because I presume when you're talking about this post-purchase flow that you set up, this is very much for somebody who's bought for the first time. But do you suggest that there's something for people who've bought for the second time or the third time or
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I normally split that flow out. You can create, not to get too technical, but you can create split paths within a flow. So I would still be asking them for feedback because they might
Mhm.
be trying a different product and they still want to feel looked after and nurtured. And you can do things like when it's a first time purchase, you can say, thanks for shopping with us for the first time. We so appreciate you taking this leap. If it's a second time purchase, you can say, "Thank you so much for shopping with us again. Really
Mm,
appreciate your
yeah.
loyalty." Like, make it super relevant. If you could even do another split path for someone where it's their fourth plus order and say, "Oh my gosh, we are so grateful that you're continuing to shop with us. Like, we so
Mm,
appreciate your loyalty." Like, try and make them really targeted and relevant. But yes, absolutely, you can still take those people on a post-purchase journey. You just probably don't wanna have that offer at the end of it every time because you wanna
no.
drive full price purchases.
Yeah, yeah. It's easy to underestimate how much that means to customers. Yeah, it's really interesting. I was interviewing somebody for Retail Raw that I'm a customer of theirs, and I was saying that, oh yeah, you've got that secret website you send out to people once they've bought from you, and he said, oh, actually, you've got to jump through a few more hoops. It's not just if you buy from us once. And I was like so delighted.
Yeah.
Yes, I went and told my family. I was like, "Remember that secret website? Apparently not everybody gets that." And it's like it's so funny because we often think about selling to people as like, "Oh my goodness, we can't be too pushy." But like I was absolutely delighted that I'd had access to something that was only for people who'd bought more than once.
Definitely.
And I do think that it means a lot to people. And I often say this to clients, is like, you can't underestimate how much people really appreciate you saying, thanks for coming back again. Because I've had it where I've bought from a brand, say 2, 3, even 4 times, and I get the same email each time saying, thanks so much for supporting us. This is
Mhm.
about our brand. And of course, I get it can be a lot to set up, but there's a little bit of me that's kind of like, oh, but I know because I've bought from you before. And if it said
Yeah.
like, thanks for coming back, I would have been so
Yeah.
delighted
It
that
that's
people
it. It's about
notice.
I totally agree. It's about making people feel, like, recognized and
Mm,
rewarded. If we liken it back to, when we all went to our local grocers or whenever on the high
yeah,
street and you'd walk in, if they didn't say, like, "Hi, Catherine," you'd be like,
yeah,
"Excuse me, no." Like, it's about that. It's a relationship, and it should
yeah.
take nurturing and recognition and little things like that, as saying, as you say, like, "Thanks for coming back again," make a big difference.
Yeah, for sure. On a purely practical note, if you've got somebody who's in a nurture sequence that's, say, a month long, would you hold them out of your newsletter or campaigns while they're getting that? Or do you think as long as you're not sending too many emails, it's okay?
Oh, it's such a good question. I think it is different for the brand. It
Yeah.
does depend on how many campaigns you're sending and
Mm,
how long that sequence is. I know I think brands that are a bit more established and have more data tend to close those journeys in
mhm,
because they are very clear on, okay, there's typically 30 days between someone's first and second purchase. So we are going to take them on this considered journey and we don't want any other noise happening at the same time.
mhm,
I think probably for smaller businesses who maybe aren't sending as many campaigns and maybe don't have as strong data on what that looks like, feel free to kind of keep everything going. You'll still
yeah,
have like a cap on how many emails people could get in one day. So yeah, it does depend a little bit on the business.
mhm. Okay. Something to think about, but unless you're somebody who's sending multiple emails a day, then you're probably fine.
Yeah, because I think, campaigns can be so powerful at kind of keeping you top of mind and kind of
Mm,
just, making sure that your brand is in the customer's head.
yeah,
And then your flow campaign can be really targeted. It's like, "Hi, Catherine, you haven't made a second purchase yet. Here's 10%
mm,
off." Oh my gosh, of course. So I think they've both got a part to play.
yeah, for sure. So, what is a common mistake that you see brands making with their post-purchase emails, and how can they fix that?
Yeah, so I think there's two of the most common I see. So one is the timing actually. So I
Okay.
sometimes see brands have got like a thank you sequence, but they're trying to cross sell to somebody the day after they place their first order.
Mm.
I actually had this with a brand recently, eyelash serum brand. And I ordered it and I immediately got an offer on my next purchase. And I was like, oh my gosh, why would I order another one yet? I've got no idea if this works or not. I haven't even received it and tried it. So I think about the timing. And also some people will ask for a review at the wrong time as well. Like as I said, you've really got to think about like when they've had the chance to actually use your product and they can feedback. And then I think the other most common mistake is that people don't do this kind of nurturing part of it. So they're like
Mm.
very focused on the products and like trying to get you to shop again, but they don't think about content and brand building and asking for feedback and creating that trust and relationship rather than just trying to sell to them again. So I think it's
Mm.
those are the two, like timing and content.
What percentage? I'm just always curious because, you know, we're probably all shopped with even bigger brands that don't really do this super well. We're like, well, how, if you were to do this, do you think you'd be in the top 50% of businesses with their email marketing? Or like, what, how many people, how common do you think it is to actually have this sorted?
I think, well, this is a massive benefit that smaller businesses and like businesses with less channels have. Because if you
Mm.
think about any brands that sell on Amazon or
Mm.
on retail websites like John Lewis, for example, you cannot connect all those dots, right? People could be
Mm.
buying your product from various different websites and channels, and you can't truthfully connect the dots and say, this is your second purchase with us because they could have bought 5 times without you
Yeah.
being able to connect that to their email address. So I do think this is a benefit of if you are, solely on Shopify,
Hmm.
um, and you've got Klaviyo set up, all of your data is pretty much in one place
Hmm.
and you can use that as to your benefit. And I also think if you're a small business, being able to pull in those things like here's a note from our founder is also really powerful that the big guys can't do as well. So I definitely think those are things that are gonna really get you more revenue, but also keep your customers happier and drive their lifetime value.
Yeah, for sure. And set yourself apart from just nothing but transactional emails, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So personalization is a big buzzword in email marketing, but how much of it really matters? And what's the best way for small businesses to approach a more personalized email marketing strategy without overwhelm? Because it can feel just like, what does it even mean? Where do you even start?
I think it does matter, but it can be really practical and achievable with
Hmm.
email. So as I mentioned, like the integration between Klaviyo and Shopify is incredibly powerful. So nearly everything that your customer is doing on your website is feeding through to Klaviyo,
Hmm.
which means that for you to create a cross-sell email, for example, which says, "Hi, Catherine, you bought this product. We think you'll love this selection of products below," and like showing 6 products will be based on their kind of browsing and shopping behavior is very achievable and easy to do. And
Mm.
remember that the beauty of flows is that you create that once and it's there running in the background for you. You're not literally coming in and going, oh God, right, what did so and so buy last week? I need to send them a campaign.
Yeah.
It's done, it's set up and it's running in the background. Yes, you need to kind of check in on and monitor and hopefully tweak these flows as you go, but the kind of the bulk of the work is done for you.
Hmm.
And flows really help make that personalization achievable. If you're sending your campaigns and it's things like new in or a sale is launching, no, I don't really think you do need to worry about personalization there. Those are
Mm.
like timely, as I said, keeping you top of mind. They're talking about a specific thing that's going on at that time. But the flows, which is where you've got more data on people anyway, that's where it becomes really powerful.
Right, I see. That's a good distinction to make. So you don't tie yourself up in knots. Just think about, what, because even to your point, like whether or not it's their first purchase or their second purchase, that's personalized. If you're changing the flows depending on what their purchase history, then that is probably more than a lot of people do.
Definitely. And I think it's the same as segmentation. People talk about segmentation a lot, and you don't necessarily, if you've got an email database of less than 10K, I wouldn't even be thinking about segmentation unless potentially you were segmenting by email engagement.
Mhm.
Okay. But you don't need to start thinking, right, what version of this email am I going to send my leads versus am I going to send my existing customers or my repeat shoppers?
Mm.
Build all that kind of strategy and thought into your flows and then get your campaigns out the door each week. And
Yeah, yeah.
all the kind of clever stuff can happen in the flows.
Yeah, amazing. So if a small business owner is listening to this and they're like, "Okay, Hannah, I'm on it. I'm gonna build a post-purchase email flow," which one would you recommend and why?
I would start with putting my customer hat on. I would focus on that customer thank you flow. So
Mhm.
really nurturing the customer as they place an order and making sure when they get it that they're likely to open it and feel good and start using it. And then with my commercial hat on, I'd look at that kind of cross sell and second purchase order. But
Mm.
you can achieve all of that within one flow. So you could just have a post purchase flow and build, as I said, this could be a 30-day flow and you can build 6 steps into it, for example. So all of that can happen. But I would put that in above anything like, a purchase anniversary or a birthday flow. Like I would
Mm.
on what happens after someone places an order with you and
Yeah,
split it by first time and repeat and start.
amazing. I mean, you said to put your customer hat on, but I think sometimes with these flows, people get a bit overwhelmed. They get themselves tangled up in like, well, what should the timing be? And what should I even address? But I'm guessing, you kind of start with what do you normally get asked? What comments do you get? What do people generally want to know when they buy from you? Or how would you kind of go about even knowing where to start?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is about thinking about definitely looking at what your most frequent customer contact is.
Mm,
And like one example that I always hear time and time again is where is my order? So if you can talk to that in that first email to say
yeah.
your order is being packed away beautifully in our lovely gift box and it's on its way to you. And like checking in at that day when they should have received it, going, we're just checking that you did receive it. If you didn't, blah, blah, like get in touch with us here.
Yeah.
So I think it is thinking about that. And yes, it normally email content comes from other content on your site. So for example, when I'm working with an apparel brand, they often have a page on their website in their footer, which is how to wash and care for our products.
Mm,
So what I'm normally doing when I'm working with a client is saying, okay, you've got this lovely content here. Let's pull this into this email. This is the perfect time that people will be looking for that content.
mm,
Same with a beauty brand and how to use it. They've normally got that content on their product detail page. So how can we pull that into the email and just reserve it to the customer in a
mhm,
convenient way as and when they need it? So I think it's about the content's normally there. Same with, our sustainability and why we do what we do. The content is on the site. It's just about pulling it in and presenting it to the customer, thinking about what do they need to hear about and when through that
mm.
customer journey.
I think that's such a great point because I think the temptation can be to say, well, I don't see the point of sending them the care instructions because they are on the website. But it's like, well, it's a big difference between you having to go to the website, look for something, and getting a nice, well timed email in your inbox where it's almost like they anticipated your question before you asked it. And then you're like,
Yeah,
oh, wow, that's helpful.
absolutely. Definitely. And also I don't normally my advice with emails is normally see it as a signpost to a website. So I wouldn't necessarily take all of that content and put it into the email. I would
Mm,
say, we want you to get the best out of our product. Here's how to take care of it. Nice bold call to action button. Get them back on the website. Guess what they're going to do after they've read the article? They're probably going to go back and start shopping again. Hooray. We've done
mm.
what we wanted to do. So it's all about kind of get them back on your website and then they'll probably start browsing again once they've read the content. So you've built that relationship, you've made them feel looked after, but you've also got them back on your site and they might shop again.
Amazing. And that's how you build, and that's how you get them from that first purchase to the second purchase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Which is then when you think about your customer lifetime values, makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation. So if people want to find out more about email marketing, about working with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I send a weekly newsletter, unsurprisingly, as an email marketer, which you can sign up to on my website, which is hspicerconsulting.com. And I'm on Instagram at Hannah Spicer _consulting. And I'm on LinkedIn at Hannah Spicer.
Amazing. And we will link to all of that in the show notes. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. Great to have you with us on the podcast. Why not head over to @Resilient Retail Club on Instagram, say hi, let us know what you thought about today's episode. Don't forget to sign up for Retail Raw. And of course, if you like, follow, or subscribe the podcast, depending on the platform that you listen to, you'll be the first to know about every new episode that comes out each Thursday morning. See you next week.